former member of Russian Duma, Denis Voronenkov, was shot in the center of Ukrainian capital Kyiv this week. He was recently granted a Ukrainian citizenship and was a witness of Ukrainian ex-president Viktor Yanukovych court case. In 2014, the Russian investigative committee opened a case against Voronenkov as he was accused of the seizure of a building in Moscow worth $5 million. That was not just the one story. Denis Voronenkov was married to an opera singer, a soloist of the Mariinsky Theater, Maria Maksakova. She also was a former member of parliament, and but from the United Russia Party, the couple had moved to Kyiv this autumn. You can read more on Denis Voronenkov and in our article 7 Facts about him. That would give more background to understand that this story is way bigger. We also know that Voronenkov's murder had been identified as a 20-year-old man. He had been shot by the guard of Voronenkov during this sad event. The name of the killer is Pavel Parshov, and according to the information by Anton Gerashchenko, who is an advisor to Ukrainian Interior Minister, he had been also the representative of the National Guard of Ukraine for 13 months, though he left it before. So there is a lot to discuss because this is a major killing in the center of Ukrainian capital. And to explain more, to understand it, we have Ilya Ponomarev, also a former Russian member of parliament who lives here in exile already for a couple of years, though Ilya is an opposition member of parliament. And to mention important that that was the meeting with you where Denis had been going. So there were a lot in the media. This is a very difficult days probably for you. But really what we need to understand at this moment about this murder.
Well, firstly, there are a lot of speculations about who Denis Voronenkov was. And I want to clarify that. Denis Voronenkov was a very high-profile investigator in Russia who was at one time in charge of anti-smuggling activities in the country, working for a state agency against drug trafficking. And being in that position, he disclosed a major network of smuggling, including drugs smuggling and conventional smuggling, which involved virtually all leadership of economic department of Federal Security Service, so KGB. And he actually managed to get 29 top-ranking generals from FSB to be fired. And that's the beginning of his, so to say, oppositional career in Russia, because of course that alienated a lot of acting officers of FSB. And most importantly, one of the currently mostly influential general in Russia, General Oleg Feoktistov, the chief of internal security of FSB. What internal security means that this is the guy who is responsible for counterintelligence inside FSB. So this is the guy who can, for example, tap without court order a phone of a chairman of FSB. And he has the right of directly reporting to Vladimir Putin. So he's one of the most influential security officers in Russia. And that was the personal enemy of Denis Voronenkov. At one point of time, around 10 years ago, Voronenkov already survived an assassination attempt in the center of Moscow, and he was shot also, but he survived. He was treated in a military hospital in France, in NATO, and at the time, somebody from the very top, and some people say that it was Vladimir Putin personally, ordered so that no more hostilities. Guys, stop fighting with each other. Denis, we are no longer investigating the corruption in FSB, but guys from FSB, stop from trying to eliminate Denis. And that was a kind of flipping the page. Denis for a while went into business, But then when he started to feel that it was not forgotten, he decided to get elected in the Duma, successfully campaigned, and in 2011 he got elected in State Duma. In State Duma, 3 times, the same group of people led by Oleg Feoktistov tried to put him in prison for this alleged case with the machinations with the building in the center of Moscow. Also for you to understand that the whole case is based on the testimony of one single guy who is kept in prison for several years in a row already. So there are no other pieces of evidence there. So I take this case as a totally fraudulent case.
But Ilya, since you already raised that issue, of course, it's very difficult at the moment to speak, very critical on somebody who had passed away, because it's anyway the tragedy as a person had been assassinated. But we would like to provide you this for those who hadn't been following, a few quotes from Novaya Gazeta, who had done an investigation of Denis Voronenkov after he had left Russia for Ukraine, with some of the particular also accusations, which we probably can't figure out now, but please listen.
All of Voronenkov's acquaintances in Russia who we interviewed are sure that the former MP has fled the country, because he himself has had to appear in court. For the last 10 years, Voronenkov's name has been mentioned in several high-profile cases. However, every time the MP has miraculously managed to get out of trouble. The reason for this luck, according to Voronenkov's acquaintances, can be explained by the strength of his connections among security officials and high-ranking officials, as well as the deterioration of the Russian intelligence agencies and the system for selecting personnel. The FSB has accumulated a lot of material on Voronenkov, but every time nothing has come of it due to political reasons. In one case, the names of the assistants to the heads of the State Duma for whom he was carrying out informal tasks would have been made public. In another case, the system of illegally financing elections would have been made public, and the 2011 elections would have had to be cancelled. It was later revealed that all information from Voronenkov was empty. He was simply mimicking the investigations of those close to him and the people he trusted. In some cases, it even turned out that he had told these people they were allegedly under deep investigation and offered to help them solve their problems. That is, not only did he not carry out any real useful work, he also managed to extract some personal benefit from this.
This is a very lengthy investigation. You can read way more details and testimonies.
Natalia, I like Novaya Gazeta. I'm good friends of editor-in-chief of Novaya Gazeta. It's one of the remaining liberal outposts in Russia. But this article is a piece of shame. It totally violates journalist ethics. It was published exactly in the same day when the scandal erupted, so it's just impossible to make an investigation in several hours and publish an article which is several pages long. It's a press release from FSB. And neither Voronenkov nor anybody else was given a chance to reply to that article and to say anything within. So it's a total violation of journalist ethics. I understand that Novaya Gazeta, being very active investigation, having a very active investigation unit, they have to cooperate with Russian security to be able to get information, and they treated like Voronenkov already as a cut piece, and so that was their compromise. But this article is a pure lie.
I just have to answer that we know personally the journalists who had written that and have some kind of respect to their previous job,
this article
as well as knew that
they to say it to him in face. I already wrote it.
Yeah, as I knew they tried to reach Voronenkov, and at the time he appeared.
Not true.
But of course, there is something we have to present to our audience. You said there was another important thing. You said that Denis was valuable to Ukraine. He knew a lot and about the financial contributions for the Putin administration. So do you think what he hadn't said? Because, of course, in Ukraine there is a popular idea. He was the witness on the Yanukovych trial, but we clearly know there are a lot of people, more than him, who could give a testimony on former Ukrainian president.
Yeah, it was very useful that he was here and that he testified on Yanukovych case. But basically, he didn't need to have any insider's knowledge on Yanukovych case, because Yanukovych case is extremely simple. It's about saying, yes, there was a letter. The letter was presented in the Russian parliament. Yes, we saw that it was presented. It's written in the official documents of State Duma, and this affected the voting process of Russian senators when they agreed for military intervention in Ukraine. So basically, you don't need anything else, and that's what Denis basically said, and that's the same what I said in my own testimony on the same case. Denis's value was in the knowledge of financial misdeeds of high-ranking Russian security generals. And as you perfectly know, the whole war in eastern Ukraine is being financed through smuggling activities. So he could have disclosed the particular banks, the particular transactions, the particular people who were responsible for those transactions. And I think that he was sentenced with dual purpose. Firstly, to show to others in Russia, to Russian elite, it was an act of state terror, as President Poroshenko correctly said, but an act of state terror not for Ukrainians, but act of state terror for Russians. You know, that you shouldn't switch sides, that you shouldn't go to Ukraine, that you shouldn't help them. And secondly, of course, to keep him silent, not to put a light of information about where the money that are financing the war is coming from.
So I'd like to follow with the tweet of the Moscow Times managing editor Oliver Carroll, a British journalist based in Moscow, not to ever expanding army of Western Russian experts. Voronenkov was less a Putin critic as a Putin betrayer. There is a difference.
Here I totally agree, and I always was saying, Voronenkov is not an angel. Voronenkov was a typical representative of Russian security forces. And their position, they say, we are uniformed people, so we are following orders. All this politics about the annexation of Crimea, war and peace, at the end of the day, that's not our question. We are being told to vote yes, yes, we will vote yes. If we will be told to vote no, yes, we will vote no. But what we know about, where we are professionals, yes, that's our job, that's our professional pride, that's our professional honor, and that's about these financial investigations.
And he was going to meet you at that sad morning. Were there anything particular you were going to discuss?
We were discussing a very simple thing. Russia was going to demand a red notice for Denis Voronenkov through Interpol. And I helped him to file all the papers for Interpol as a preemptive measure to avoid issuing of this red notice. I myself passed the same procedure. 10 of my political aides have political asylums in different countries and also experienced Interpol requests. So we like sharing the experience, and that's also because I know very well the substance of the accusations against Voronenkov. Because to prepare the letter, I had to flip through all the criminal cases opened against him in the past, in the present, see through all the materials, and helped his lawyers to properly put the filing.
The Ukrainian Member of Parliament, Mustafa Nayem, has said that Voronenkov's assassination exposes weakness of Ukraine's law enforcement. And of course, there was the huge discussion here in Ukraine is that they failed to protect them. There is a high-level witness, and the Ukrainian state service had to do more. And of course, that's what everybody discussed here in Kyiv. But what do you say? Do you think that it's, you know, like if the Kremlin wants to get rid of somebody, it doesn't matter. They kill the people in London.
Well, firstly, as we see, for example, Alexander Litvinenko in Great Britain, he was protected by MI6 and he was assassinated. Boris Berezovsky, the same protection, he was assassinated and with the best private security service money can buy. In United States, Mikhail Lesin, also defector from Russia, was assassinated in the center of Washington, D.C., being protected by FBI. So the best security services in the world world, if professionals want to eliminate somebody, usually are not able to do something. Yeah, you can put a person on a military base, put security guards, and maybe in this case he will be safe. But we are public people, myself, Denis, others, so we don't want to live this life. We want to be able and capable to come to you and to talk to you about the recent events. And in this situation, it always can happen. No, I think the failure that Mustafa is talking about is a different thing. The failure was in actually recognizing the value of Denis Voronenkov, because, as I said, the value was not in Yanukovych's case. And the failure to give an order to properly protect him, because all the politicians, because of such articles as you just cited from Novaya Gazeta and the wave of dirty disinformation that was raised by Alexei Navalny, one of Russian political activists against Denis Voronenkov, actually prevented Ukrainian politicians to come closer to him. They thought that Voronenkov may turn to be a toxic asset for themselves. So from one side they say, okay, if he will receive his citizenship but through a conventional procedure, not through a presidential decree, he will manage to do it by himself, that's okay, we will not prevent it. But the security that was assisting Denis, protecting him, there was military people, and they were acting on just military orders and not by legal enforcement procedures, as, for example, I am protected right now by SBU.
Ilya, so I knew that you had been asked a few times this question after this assassination. So you here, how do you feel? Are you afraid? Are you more concerned? How all kind of the things. You're another former Russian MP.
When Denis was deciding to move to Ukraine, and our first talk about this was in September 2016, and we were sitting in the cafe in the center of Kyiv, and so he was asking me, so how it would be here, and will he be able to integrate in the Ukrainian society? And I said, like, it's a wonderful place, it's a great city, I feel like that's the best period of my life, but you should also understand that you are buying a ticket to war. And it is a full-fledged war where there are shots and where there are victims. And he said that he understands this and he wants to go for this war because he wants to publish Russian corrupt generals. He wants to change his country and he wants to serve this new country for him to become.
Thanks on that. Of course, I should explain to our audience that, of course, there is a lot to read about Denis Voronenkov. He was not an easy figure, not a clear and opposition member of parliament, but somebody who had some background and the cooperation with the former Russian authorities. Before we go to the protests in Russia, which we will discuss with Ilya later, I propose you to watch a short clip from the interview with Denis Voronenkov, which the Hromadske had done a month ago here at these premises. So please watch, and a longer version is available on our webpage.
In your first interview, you said that you gave evidence to the prosecution regarding Yanukovych's treason. How did you know that?
Listen, it came from somewhere I had specific knowledge of this area.
You said that you feel a certain danger being here. Is that so? What is that in relation to?
We're not stupid. We understand what's going on. You see, right now sparks are flying into Russian media. They're dragging me through the mud, thinking up ways to make me seem like a bad guy. It means I've become important to them. I've gotten under their skin. At the moment, the government is sacred in Russia. No one has the right to criticize it. I've spoken out on everything. I say it like it is. And I assure you, there is a large number of conscious people out there who think the same. But they are afraid. Why are they afraid? I explain this in my article. It's because of all grown men in Russia between the ages of 21 and 60 who have been through the prison system. They're everyone in there. And for those who haven't been yet, they can always find a way. It was the same when I apparently organised the theft of certain buildings with people who I'd never met in my life. I'd never seen them. I didn't know them at all. I don't know who these people are. You know, the funniest thing is, when they showed these people the photograph, they said that they knew me.
But why are they trying to get rid of you?
It all took place in secret until 2013. I knew they were fabricating a case on me. But officially, they always said that I had no such claim. In 2013, the Communist Party of the Russian Federation started putting me forward for an auditor position at the accounts chamber. It was quite a high-ranking position, the level of minister. And they needed to bring me down. In whatever position, I was enemy. They said I was a criminal. And that's when the first articles appeared in the press.
Let's go back to the events of 2014, who from the highest ranks, the State Duma deputies, were not publicly opposed to the annexation of Crimea.
A huge number of people. I once talked to Ilya Ponomarev. We estimated that 40 people would vote against. He said that he found himself alone and got scared. Of course, he was strongly opposed to the government, and he talked about it openly. He defended his position till the end, and many others realized how painful it would be for them if they did the same. 15 minutes of fame for 10,000 years dishonor. I was told directly, you're 50 meters away from the State Duma. Nothing will save you. Considering the problems I've been charged with in 2013, I weighed everything up and decided my vote. If I say what I think, what do I get? I'd end up losing my family. They wouldn't shy away from doing that. I understand the methods of this government. It doesn't even compare to the methods the NKVD used and those that Stalin used as well. It's the combination of scum and worthlessness that destroys and crushes everything.
You've already said that you yourself did not vote.
Of course, I avoided it. It goes without saying. It was weak of me. I understand that it was a mistake the government made that created serious problems for the country. It was at that moment I decided I didn't want to live like that I would go to Ukraine. Above all else, it's a way of life. We are hostages. Where do we live?